Nerd Glasses podcast will start in 2 minutes. Thank you. Hey Dave.
Yes, Boater.
Do you want to do a podcast? We make a darn good team. It always goes without a hitch. Let's head to Twitch and go start up the stream. We've got so much to cover. We'll do it all, although I'm not quite sure how. Do you want to do a podcast? It's the Nerd Glasses podcast. Let's start now. I watched Frozen after the podcast last week. It was fun. Way too many songs, but otherwise I really enjoyed it.
Way too many songs.
Like there's
your musical show.
There's your standard like Disney movie like threshold of how many songs there are. Like Lion King has 5, maybe. Frozen had 15.
Well, here was the problem.
It was like did you ever play? I mean, you play something like Metal Gear Solid 5 or the start of the second Tomb Raider game, where I played that on stream and I walked 5 steps and then there was a cutscene.
Yeah.
Then I walked 5 steps and there was a cutscene.
Mm-hmm.
This was like start with music, a couple lines of dialogue, and another song. Oh, there might be some plot here that's, but nope, it has a song.
I will say, on one hand, it was very cleverly hidden about the fact that the movie was written, and then some of the executives were like, no. That one can't be the bad guy in the movie. That song is too good. She's now going to be a good guy. And so you could see all the writers were like, crap.
Okay, so I'm talking Frozen 2. Frozen 1 had like your Disney standard number of songs. Frozen
okay.
2 is in theaters. I saw that with Steph after the podcast, and just I really mean like there's like a dozen songs. It's ridiculous.
Did they sing Do You Want to Build a Snowman?
No, there was a short little mention of it. There was also a mention of Let It Go, where they're like looking at things that happened in the past, and Elsa notices that bit and goes, ugh. It was good times.
All right, I might go see that movie if they're.
It's good.
Because Disney's one of the few companies that makes
they've done
fun of
those
themselves.
kind of like wink kind of things. Yeah, it's good. And ultimately, like I enjoyed the movie. There was a really good one that Boater and I loved. Yes. Oh, there was this. So we almost had the theater to ourselves. Okay.
Oh.
We walk in. And, like, there's nobody in there. It's me and Steph. It's a 9:10 showing. The target audience for this movie is in their beds.
I was going to say, you, Steph, and that one kid that was awake too late.
Yes. A parent with 2 kids walks in as the first trailer starts going. I was so looking forward to just, in my normal talking voice, ready to crap on the movie when the time would come. But I had to, like, do my quiet off to the side. But then... Like, the kids loved a thing with Olaf, of course, great, that's who Olaf is for. And then there was just this one thing with Kristoff that was amazing. It was like the most 90s ballad. Like, he starts singing, and at one point he goes and he sits down on a rock all morose. and the other half of the screen is him like torso up singing. It was the best.
So, I will say I enjoy the fact that we started with a script and we are now a good couple minutes into an even funnier conversation. So what I will ask you is, and I will ask this as a question of you guys watching at home, and you, Boater, I know I personally enjoy greatly when I am not a member of the target audience for a film, but I am in an audience with the target audience of it, because then I have my perspective, but then I get to see, oh, they laughed at that joke, oh, they didn't get that one, but I did, and that was aimed at me. So I love that, but at the same, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely some points where it was like, Olaf has his own song, and it's a thing, and I was like, not on board with it, but at the same time, like, you know, the kids behind me are losing their stuff over, you know, just having a good time. And that was kind of neat. It's like, it made it a little more bearable. Yes, this is what's happening. That's for them, so it's fine. Are you okay?
We're a little yellow today. It seems to have cleared up, but when we started, we were very yellow.
Yeah, the webcam gets a little odd with that. There's also like so much blue back here that it tries to compensate for and turns us yellow, so...
Now it's fine. Well, now it's not even as bad when I was referencing it a minute. Now it's just doing it to make me look like an ass.
No, it was basically poking you, and then when you turn around and say, "Stop touching me," it's, I wasn't touching you.
Yeah. Boater and Dan are now looking.
Okay, so we as much as I enjoyed my opening bit, and we have so much to cover, we don't have a ton to cover today.
We have a lot of very in-depth topics without spoilers.
Yes, so the big thing that we're going to talk about is Star Wars in general as a saga. Rise of Skywalker comes out like 2 days from now. 48 hours from now. Thank you, CJ Playmaker. 48 hours from now, maybe 49 hours from now, I will be sitting in a theater moments away from the opening fanfare of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Or it might just be Rise of Skywalker.
The Rise of Henry Winkler.
There. So, I think, like, I'm not going to participate in speculation. I'm not going to participate in spoilers, because somebody left his copy of the script in a hotel room.
It was Lucas, wasn't it?
And we're not going to say who it was, John Boyega. But the script is out there. Spoilers are very easy to find if you want to find them. I don't like being spoiled for a movie. Even, like, casting announcements, I'm like, oh, well, that means that character is going to be in the movie now. You know, when it's, a returning character. And, okay, fine. Like, once they show up in a trailer, cool. But, like, I very much like going into movies cold. This is as a strong contrast to when the trailer for Episode 3 came out. And I sat there on my bed in my college dorm eating a crate of popcorn chicken, just watching the trailer on repeat for half an hour. Maybe a full hour. It's a moment in time. I don't know the measurements around it. But you brought up that, like, in this lead up to it, it's a good time to kind of reflect on the saga as a whole, because this is supposedly the end of the Skywalker saga that started in 1977 with Luke Skywalker, that started in Episode 1 with Anakin, that traced the Skywalkers themselves through 6 movies, and then the legacy of them and people around them through these next 3. Popcorn chicken comes in crates. It was from the Cat's Den. It was whatever their biggest thing was.
I was going to say, yours doesn't Demon Dragon come in crates? Mine does. I order specifically the crate.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We're going to get an air fryer. We'll be able to have the best popcorn chicken at home. Oh, yeah. Anyway, it's like a wholesale club thing. Yeah, just go down to Sam's, get a crate of popcorn chicken. It's the best.
If you don't know how to ask at BJ's for a crate of popcorn chicken, you clearly haven't asked for a crate of
That's
popcorn
honestly
chicken.
What Boy Scouts should do rather than the caramel corn is just the big old tin of popcorn chicken. I would 100% get behind that.
Imagine kids scalding themselves on an air fryer. Like, I'm raising money for my troop to be able to get the...
By golly, I'll take 70.
Man,
as long as each one comes with a show like that.
I will do a shameless product plug since CJ Playmaker, I'm already starving. Well, if you're starving in the Wilton Mall, I can tell you where to go, and that's
I can tell you where to
Auntie
stick
Anne's.
it. And just because I need to do so at some point, again with the ritual motion gloves, I'm gonna do the plug there, and just they sold out of their first run, so they're taking pre-orders for the second run and have a code for getting $5 off. Anyway, I wanted to drop that in at some point. Did that now. Back to Star Wars.
Nice. So yes, this is the last in the series with Skywalker. So
Now the
arc-
thing is that it's this is all 9 episodes, because Lucas said for the longest time I have 9 episodes planned, and
Except for
I
that
took
one
that
time
as
that he said it was one movie.
I took that like as gospel until I realized just how much he like bullshit his way through the first 20 years of Star Wars existing, and then it became apparent that he was flying by the seat of his pants, and it was like oof, woof. But supposedly 9 movies and then it's done. Now that being said, I don't think there's necessarily going to be an episode 10, but I think that they will find new ways to continue telling the story that is going forward from the Galactic Civil War onto whatever we're calling this time with the Resistance versus the First Order, and whatever its then logical next step is going to be. But before we talk about what future Star Wars might bring, let's talk about what brought us to Star Wars and what brought us to this moment. Dave, how did you get into Star Wars?
The year is 1997. My parents tell me, get in the car. We're going on a trip. Would not tell me what we're seeing, would not tell me what we're doing. We go to my local movie theater, where the theatrical re-releases were being put into theater. So I saw 4, 5, and 6 in a theater with my parents, who had seen them in the theaters when they were first released. And so they exposed me and my sister to them live in theater, popcorn, the whole shalamazel. It was the best.
So all of this, it was like fresh for you. You were 10-ish at the time?
I'll get back to you in 14 minutes.
Okay. But like, the things that were twists for you.
Yes.
The identity of Yoda, the fact that Vader is Luke's dad, all of these were twists for you. And
I was 8.
okay. I first saw Star Wars, I have no idea. I grew up with it always existing. I fell in love with the Battle of Hoth sequence in Empire. I would walk around my basement on all fours like I was an Imperial Walker. I've just always known everything about the original trilogy since before I can remember. Whatever my earliest memories were, I already knew that Vader was Luke's dad. So like I never got that. I never got that. Oh my gosh, kind of thing. CJ Playmaker, I was 4 at my aunt's house and was chronologically confused because I went 4, 1, 2, 5, 6, 3. Oh my. Yeah, so it's Star Wars has kind of always been a part of that, and my dad introduced me to the Star Wars EU more or less as it was coming out, probably like 1994, 95 or so. I started reading those books. I was playing the games like Dark Forces, TIE Fighter, everything like that. And by the time Special Edition came around, like I knew the movies more or less inside and out. Although in pan and scan. So when Luke looks through the binoculars and say, "Oh, yep, they're sand people, all right. I can see one now." There's not one on screen. It's cut off on the side. But yeah, I've just always known these things. And then the special editions came out, and I loved them because I was 11, and as much as the things that we kind of don't like right now, I loved them because they were new, they were fresh. It was some new Star Wars for me. Han talking to Jabba. It was cool to see things updated, and then the prequels came out, and I love those too, and I still do. I'm like, I can see the faults in the prequels, but I still enjoy watching them as movies. If I'm just going to watch a Star Wars movie, it's probably going to be Empire, but if I watch like Attack of the Clones, I'm fine as long as I skip past every time it's just Anakin and Padme talking in a room.
But sand.
I don't remember when I received it, but I got the VHS box set of the original trilogy for Christmas when I was a kid. Yeah, and I think like we all have our different releases that we grew up with. Like my dad had them recorded on HBO, so we just like had the tapes. I know we said we were going to do this conversation at the end, but frankly, we're just doing it now. So like he had the tapes, and then in 1994 there was the THX remaster.
Yeah.
With the faces on the cover of the VHS. Yeah, like years later, I got that set on Laserdisc simply so I can have those framed on my wall with the, Stormtrooper and the Imperial Walkers for Empire Strikes Back kind of thing. I got to see the prequels when they came out, and I enjoyed it, and I was like, well, okay, that's done with Star Wars then. He's not planning on making more. Then the Disney buyout happened, and I'm skipping over the whole thing where I was part of a fan film community. We were making our own Star Wars movies. And all that. People were doing like parodies of the 20th Century Fox thing to put in front of there or whatever. Then Disney bought it.
If you're gonna parody it, you gotta try.
And then Disney bought it. There wasn't 20th Century Fox in front of the movie, and we got new movies. I was looking through my Facebook memories, and today, might have been yesterday, but I'm just gonna say for story's sake, 4 years ago today, I sat down in a theater with my wife for a brand new Star Wars movie.
Nice.
The last time one had come out, I hadn't even met her. And that was just really cool to be able to share with her. And then just basically a Star Wars movie a year coming out since then. Then Rogue One, then Last Jedi, then Solo, and now Rise of Skywalker. Star Wars has kind of been my life.
So you saw Solo in theater?
Yes, I've seen every single... every theatrical release since I have been born, I have been in the theater to see it. My parents went to Return of the Jedi back in '83 on a date. They got married in '84, but while they were dating, they went and saw Return of the Jedi in theaters.
Good date?
Yep. Hey, yes, Demon Dragon, thank you for reminding me. Among other things, I did a fan film recreating the Star Wars trench run with my car and a couple people in the car. And that was featured as part of the tribute for 40 years after A New Hope came out. IMDb posted a clip of a bunch of tributes that included like the Family Guy one, Robot Chicken, Hardware Wars, Thumb Wars, all of them that had that, as well as some fan films, including mine, and that was super cool. So yeah, I've done lightsaber choreography competitions. I've been immersed in it. Does it define my life the same way now that it did 15 years ago? No. When I was sitting there, popcorn chicken in the bucket? Not quite.
Bucket? Now wait a minute. It's a bucket now?
It was probably actually more of a bucket than a crate. But it was a crate-shaped bucket. So just let it be a thing.
I don't know.
I will use whatever words I darn well please, Dave.
I'm gonna have to start calling you. So, you were raised on the films before 1997 when the theatrical releases came out.
Correct. Yes.
Just as a random preponderance to you, my first exposure to sci-fi was Star Trek.
Okay.
It was The Next Generation on TV. We would watch it. Ironically enough, me, my mother, my grandparents, and we would sit and we would watch it.
Next Generation would sometimes be on in my house. Like Dad would watch it. Dad enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I never felt any animosity towards Star Trek coming from a Star Wars viewpoint.
Okay.
But it wasn't my thing.
But Star Wars was your first exposure.
Yes.
In a broader sense to science fiction.
Yeah,
as a
to
whole.
a lot of people, I think and like there's a lot of ways to get into science fiction.
Oh yes.
And Star Wars isn't even really science fiction once you've had a lot of exposure to what sci-fi is and can be.
True.
It's space fantasy.
Yep.
Space opera. It is very, the old serials kind of thing. You see stuff with like, did they really need to go and sit in the belly of a space slug for a while? No, but it's a cool thing, so do it. Same with the Rathtar attack in Force Awakens, just all these things. Can we get just a Fortnite crate of popcorn chicken?
Not till Insane Games TV has 1 million followers.
And then we will Amazon drone a crate of popcorn chicken straight to your door.
We'll Amazon deliver you a crone of
I just saw actually a really good movie called like Skywatch. It's like a 10-minute short film that basically does the Amazon drone thing, but someone was hacking into the system, so it drops its crate and brings out some guns. Oh no!
Oh god!
It just came out.
So
anyway.
it's like those droids they dropped on Hoth.
Again, I'm going to give
And then
this
guns.
to the citation needed team, the technical difficulties, but I feel like we're not too far from Amazon drone to Amazon drone strike. Okay, so
Just one more on the Star Wars things. So, how do you personally feel knowing that the film franchise, the story that has been told since before you and I were born, is unofficially coming to an end? How does that make you feel?
I think that the story came to an end in 1983, but there were always more stories to tell around that. So there was the original trilogy, then we were able to tell the story in the prequels of how we got there. And the sequel trilogy isn't a continuation of the original story. It is a new generation with their own story.
Yeah.
And yes, there are cinematic and thematic echoes to what came before. That is one thing with Star Wars, it's like poetry. It rhymes, is the Lucas quote about it. But it is a new story. And we will continue to see new stories, whether they're out of whole cloth, like The Mandalorian is, or whether they find a point to tie in, like Rogue One did. There will always be new stories in Star Wars because it is a gigantic sandbox to play in.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe that, just look at everything that existed before Disney bought it that are now legends. For all the novels that came out, for good or for bad. Just so many stories that can be told. And I think that the EU was the best when it did that with new people and not just like, all right, Lando's at it again. He's got another get rich quick scheme, and Luke is trying to figure out how the Force works, and Han's running away from responsibility, and Leia's doing nothing because it's the 90s and we're not quite sure how to handle a female lead yet. When they gave us new characters in Michael Stackpole and Aaron Alston's X-Wing series, it was fantastic, and that's probably my favorite expanded universe stuff. And that's what resonated so strongly with me in Rogue One and Solo, and that it's off of the Skywalker path, and there's new things to be told. And I think that as that gets more and more embraced, we're going to see more interesting things coming out of Star Wars in theaters. I'm really enjoying The Mandalorian, because there's a new episode tomorrow rather than Friday that will tie into the movie. And I'm interested to see how much it does that. But for the most part, The Mandalorian has just been kind of tootling along, doing its own thing, and I really enjoy that. And that's what I think Star Wars can be, is just another sandbox for more and more stories.
I know, I'm glad that we're getting a finality to the Skywalker saga, because they waited an incredibly long amount of time to pick up these actors who have a shelf life. People don't live forever, hence why, unfortunately,
Rest in peace, Carrie Fisher.
we will not be having Carrie Fisher going on the red carpet and giving reporters what they deserve, and society what they deserve anytime she gets a microphone in front of her. But
it generally goes like this: "Fuck you, meh."
Yeah. And I will miss that. I am happy to see that we're not going to have that nail biter. Oh my God, is Harrison Ford going to live long enough to do a spin-off with this or that or the other? Is Mark Hamill
It's a
going
solo
to
time travel movie with Aaron Eichenreich and Harrison Ford in the same movie together?
and Garfield?
Aaron, right? I didn't pronounce the young solo actor's name right, but anyway.
But so I'm happy to see that the things that I will remember about 4, 5, and 6 as a kid, the things I will remember about 4, 5, and 6 as an adult, the things I will remember about 1, 2, and 3 as a tweener and as an adult, and the things that I will have now for the films that are coming in the future as someone that has both the nostalgia glasses and also the want of honestly more story, because it's not like they're clawing for ideas. There is 1.5 billion things that were even casually mentioned in any movie that you could make an entire film series off of.
And I mean, sure enough, half of Solo is set on Kessel, and that's something that had 2 mentions in A New Hope. Captivated the imagination, had plenty of EU stuff.
Exactly.
And I will say, one more thing is that I've been rewatching all of the movies in timeline order. Last time that I sat and watched all the movies, it was Thanksgiving after Revenge of the Sith came out, and we did the 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6. You start off with Luke, you find out that Vader is Luke's dad, we go back, we get Vader's story, we go to Return of the Jedi and get the conclusion of all that.
That's cool.
It's the machete order, but not just dumping episode 1. And I don't know that there's a funky order like that with the sequel trilogy. We'll have to wait until it all comes out. But a friend of mine on Twitter watched them in release order, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8. And I decided I'd watch in release in chronological timeline order. So I watched 1, then 2, then 3, then Solo, then Rogue One, then 4, 5, 6. I watched 7 last night. Tomorrow night is 8, and then 9 the night after. And it's really cool, actually, to see how well some stuff works. Watching Lando and Han talk together, like, at the beginning of Return of the Jedi, when, like, Chewie, give me that blaster. What? I thought you were blind. No, I can see a lot better now. Hold on. You know, like, that little bit, 100% feels exactly how... Again, I'm going to mispronounce his name. It's like Aaron Reich, or Eichenreich or something. Aaron and Glover did their characters. Like how much they must have looked at this and caught that same energy. So it's totally believable that it builds off of that. It's really cool to go back to Yavin. Like if you ever felt that there wasn't enough of Yavin in A New Hope, where it's just this tiny little briefing room, the command center with the big table in the middle, and the hangar. The fact that we were there 1 movie ago, if you watch Rogue One and then A New Hope, just makes it feel so much more expansive.
Yeah.
So there's so many cool little things when watching the movies in order.
With all of that, you mentioned Legends.
Yes.
Now, since the Disney takeover, they obviously, instead of, and they, I like the fact that they categorized it as Legends,
and
as opposed
a lot
to
of them, like
non-canon, which it was for a little while.
Yeah. And like a lot of them are still getting published. You can go to Northshire and pick up, like, I keep the original Thrawn trilogy by Timothy Zahn, and 2 X-Wing books in stock because they are representative of that era.
Do you think that there is anything, video games, current literature, not necessarily the television shows, things like that, that will become legends moving forward, and as the story sort of changes to move away from...
Are they going to continue to make stuff non-canon?
Yes.
I don't think so. I think in starting off with their new slate, because for 40 years, nearly 40 years, there was like one dude whose job it was to keep everything in canon with each other. There was Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which was freaking weird, and then Empire Strikes Back came out, and it was like, all right, we're not doing that, but everything else, this should all tie in together. And I think that Disney's going to have no problem doing that. I think that there might be a couple little things that get, like, retconned along the way, but they're never going to take something and just
massive
dump it
publications
and say no. But what they're doing is instead going the other way. So I mentioned the Thrawn trilogy. Mm-hmm. They brought Timothy Zahn back and had him bring that character back, and that character is now official again. He's writing more books with them. Thrawn Alliances, Thrawn Treason. Those last 2 might be switched around, I'm not sure. Thrawn is part of the Rebels TV series. And then but the other cool thing with Legends is that there are so many beloved stories, by which I mean Knights of the Old Republic, that they could then go and pretty much say, that's canon now, by simply releasing a new game in that timeline, or by deciding, hey, the next movie is going to be back during that 4000 BBY era and doing something with it.
Episode, whatever it is, this time next year. Or is it next year or 2 years from... In any case...
I think 2 years from now.
In a year or 2 years from now...
Among other things, Solo didn't do as well as I thought it should have, so they were like, we're going to take it easy on the release schedule, which ultimately I think is fine.
But in a year or 2 years from now, EA, the license with Disney, who now owns the Star Wars franchise...
Oh, okay, that's where you were going.
...is up.
Okay.
Do you think, as someone that I know on stream at Boaterbug on Twitch, played... these different Star Wars games that EA has created, do you think they're going to be able to keep the license?
I don't think they're going to be able to keep the exclusivity. Just because of how everything went with Battlefront, where Disney had basically stepped in and said, hey, you're damaging our brand. I think that they will be allowed to keep making games, but they will not have the exclusivity. I sincerely hope that LucasArts becomes a thing, Lucasfilm Games, whatever you want to call it, so that they can come back and have an in-house studio making Star Wars games. Yes, I would love to see Knights of the Old Republic, but the time for that might be a little bit past, and let's be honest, BioWare isn't what it used to be, and maybe it can make a game like that again. Who knows? I want to see X-Wing get released. TIE Fighter, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, X-Wing Alliance.
Yes!
I think it's been 20 years? No, it's not like an anniversary date, but someone posted something recently about TIE Fighter, which was such a great game back in the day. I can barely get it to run. I want to use it with a flight stick. It doesn't work. I want to be able to play that on a modern system. And it doesn't need to have the most up-to-date graphics, but I want a Star Wars flight sim. They can do that.
You know what game I do really want back, and I want them to fix? Shadow of the Empire.
I
understand why we will probably never see that get rebuffed, but I loved the idea that we were another bounty hunter in a time where you didn't see that many of them. You had Han and Chewie, you had Bosk, you had Boba Fett, you had all of these guys, these cast characters, and then suddenly you had the main character, and he was this dude that was just off screen in all the movies.
Yeah,
like
yeah, basically Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. And or Lion King 1.5 if you prefer. And that's a new character doing a thing that splits off a little bit. Shadows of the Empire was neat because it was a multimedia thing. There was the games, there was the novel, there was a comic series. The Force Unleashed did that a little bit, and I kind of hope that they do a multimedia thing with Star Wars coming up pretty soon as well.
I also wanted to ask, speaking of licensing, speaking of product and things like that based upon the franchise, if you remember, almost every single Star Wars movie received a tie-in game.
Yep.
An official release Star Wars, Super Star Wars, or Super.
Yep.
And then recently, up to the PlayStation 1 having Phantom Menace, this and that and the other. But then for these more recent games,
please bring back Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. I would literally give a finger off of my left hand in order to be able to play that game in modern systems.
Didn't they remaster it for?
No, a fan built it in Unreal Engine 4, but it doesn't have the right physics, and it's just a tech demo.
Then what one got updated? Because I know I have on my PlayStation 4, I have Super Star Wars Bounty Hunter, which is a great game, by the way, and if you haven't played it, you should. It's so much damn fun. And then it was I think it was Pod Racer.
Now this is Pod Racing.
It was Pod Racer.
Anakin said that line at the end of Episode 1, and I went... Instinctively, Steph laughed at me. Again, I live tweeted watching these movies, and that just... But no,
do you think that this last film or any future films will get licensing like that, where it's you're playing through the film that you have watched, a la these other... Well,
that style game hasn't been made too much recently.
Yeah.
Like, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, every movie got a tie-in. Remember, Wanted got a game that was a tie-in.
If I look at the PS4, the PS2 wall, Curious George movie got
you look
a
at the
game
PS2 wall, there's a ton of them. If you look behind it at the PS4 wall, there's almost none. Now, there are some that might tie into it, Lego Star Wars, but not like a straight-up, here's a Star Wars game. Instead, those... because you can't crank that stuff out cheaply anymore.
No.
Game design costs have gone up.
Or they just don't distribute it via physical disc. It's just multimedia, iOS, mobile.
We see a lot there. Demon Dragon mentions that there's a mobile game right now that KOTOR characters are a part of. I don't think that makes them canon. I think that makes them a little more Easter egg-y than anything. But there are certainly a lot more mobile games than there are AAA console and PC games. There was Starfighter Assault was a cheaply made PC game 3 years ago. No, I wasn't in my house yet, so it must have been like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
That never got out of beta. Because they decided not to keep putting what little resources they were already throwing into it. So, like, for a PC and console game, they go big or they go home, and they only will... That's the other thing, too, is that by breaking EA's stranglehold on the license, they can get more studios on it. They can make more games. They could have a studio that is just making the movie tie-in games. They could have another studio that is making... let's get the studio behind Burnout to make a new Star Wars racer game. Let's have whatever.
Demon Dragon. The Old Republic characters have been acknowledged by Father Disney. So before we move on, this is my last question because I want.
Yes, we do have a couple other bits that we do want to hit.
So I want your favorite video game and your Star Wars film that you reach for first when you think, I'm going to watch a Star Wars movie. The first thing that pops in your head, I'm going to do one of them as well, but I would like to hear yours first.
Okay, my movie is Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
I fell in love with Star Wars because of the Battle of Hoth, and even like it's the one that had the fewest changes going into the special edition. It was already beautifully shot by the director of photography, beautifully directed by Lawrence Kasdan, just gorgeous.
And you guys watching out there answer that question too.
Although when we did our rewatch, we watched the Laserdisc transfers, so we were watching like before the special edition. And yeah, like Empire still looked absolutely gorgeous. My favorite Star Wars game is Knights of the Old Republic, which I did on my YouTube channel. And it's just so rich. It makes... Like, does it go back to Tatooine? Yes. But so many other stuff, it just made its whole thing. It was the first thing that was set in that era and said, this is what's going on now. And so many things followed it. Sure, KOTOR 2, but so many other things after that were set in that era that they started. And again, that was giving themselves a brand new sandbox to play in, and that's what I hope to see more of after 9 is done. New Hope for Demon Dragon, for the go-to Star Wars, which I will 100% respect. I think it's my second favorite. Has that typical hero's journey, and really just like does everything so well as far as what it introduces and the pace it introduces everything.
CGs.
Like the Force is shown as like being magical, and it doesn't tell you what the Force can do. It's just Obi-Wan did a mind trick or whatever, and then you
become aware that there's this
you realize
something out there.
Telekinesis from the Force wasn't a thing until Empire Strikes Back, when Luke is hanging upside down and calls the saber to him. Meanwhile, Phantom Menace, Qui-Gon is mind tricking Boss Nass, and you don't even know to look for it unless it's there. They have a crappy force speed off to the side. They just use force powers willy-nilly. No explanation, just Qui-Gon is a wizard.
CJ Playmaker, A New Hope, and the original Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Nice. Good choices.
So for my favorites, it is also A New Hope.
Okay.
Just because that was the first film that really opened, and that was really the film that I got the idea of literary elements and like things like this, and all the idea that all these characters can have different motivations and different paths that they take, and they don't all have to meet back at the end of the movie and high five, and then the music plays and everyone walks away. Obi-Wan just died. Mm-hmm. Here's a lightsaber. By the way, here's the Force. Well, what's the Force? Like,
yeah. Like, Force is whatever you want it to be, or whatever it wants to be through you. Peace.
My favorite game, it really might be Bounty Hunter, just because I couldn't stop playing it.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed the fact that you got this mythological character that you really learned absolutely butt-kiss about. But then there he was, doing all these epic things, and you got to see him, and you got that expanse of he was both fallible, he didn't have any extra powers, because you got your ass kicked a lot, but the fact that game had a Star Wars feel to it, but then wasn't, a lightsaber game or things like that, I really enjoyed. So, least favorites.
Before we go on to least favorites, let me get to an honorable mention. I already mentioned how much I really love Racer and TIE Fighter, although, TIE Fighter's unplayable till they update it. I will say Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Academy was also really great. If only because most of my memories of that, like I played the single player campaign, and then I did multiplayer with like guns, whatever, and then people would do saber battles, and you could do saber battles in there that worked really well, had really good mechanics. But my favorite thing is that if you looked down when you were holding a saber, you would bow, and so it became customary in the community to bow before a saber fight.
Ah! Did you ever play Knights of Terraskazi?
No, I did not.
Oh boy, do I have an idea for a stream sometime.
And like I give some kudos to Rebel Assault 2 for being some of the first live action stuff that was shot. It came out in 1993. It was the first live action stuff shot after Return of the Jedi, because we're not counting the Ewok movies. They built some new sets. They got the costumes out of the warehouses for stormtroopers and everything and shot it live action.
Yeah.
So cool. I don't have a least favorite. Like, I don't have a Star Wars game that I played that was bad.
Okay.
At least, not that I've played recently to acknowledge that it was bad. Because back when I was younger, Star Wars could do no wrong. I overlooked a lot in the name of Star Wars. I enjoyed Crystal Star at one point in my life.
And rightfully so.
The Star Wars board game was the second live-action thing that they shot after that. So much fun. That's also on my series, on my YouTube channel.
CJ was not a fan of Attack of the Clones and the EA Star Wars Battlefront, which was released in 2015.
Okay, so we're also asking least favorite movie. Yeah, it would be Attack of the Clones.
Okay.
Because of how not to write a romance. The other stuff is fun, but Anakin and Padme in a room together, it's just so awful.
So, alright. So, I know my least favorite Star Wars game was one that showed up in the same way that games you don't like showed up. As a gift. And it was Star Wars Super Bombad Racer. Because it wasn't a Star Wars game. It wasn't a good racing game, so it did nothing right. I love my family. I do. Because you know what? That game was fun to play when you had everybody knowing what you were going to do. It's the same idea. It's like punching yourself in the face. You know what's going to happen, and you might get a little tickle out of, ha 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 ha, what an idea. But it was bad. It was bad, and it was bad, and it was bad.
I'm going to say my least favorite Star Wars game is Star Wars Dark Forces, the full game. The original Dark Forces.
Oh!
And here's why. When I first played the game, I got a collector's edition CD set that was Rebel Assault 2, Rebel Assault, TIE Fighter, the first 3 missions of Dark Forces, and a Behind the Magic that was showing the stuff they were doing for the special edition coming out soon. And I played the first 3 missions of Dark Forces a ton, and I loved it. I got the full game, and Mission 4 is an absolute travesty. It's just awful and unplayable, like by modern standards. And that's the thing, is that I didn't play it back in 1990 when. I tried playing it maybe 10 years ago. In 2009, and it was just so unplayable that it's another one that, like, because of what it is and what it means, it introduced Kyle Katarn, who became such a big part of Legends. They did like 5 more games with him. I respect it for that, but actually trying to play it was the worst. I watched Game Grumps play that. I assume by that meaning Super Bombad Racing.
Yes,
it was hilarious.
I bet it was. I do want to say, personally, the Star Wars film that I honestly felt a little bit disappointed leaving the theater was The Last Jedi. It's not. I don't think it was a bad movie.
One of those.
I just personally walked into the theater, having watched The Force Awakens, having all these ideas of this is the direction they were going into. I like the way J.J. Abrams directs. I'm very familiar with his filmography, things like that. And then I walked in, I sat down, and I was presented something that personally, from a standpoint, I felt as a viewer and a person that bought a ticket was not similar aesthetically in so much as I also felt,
Well, I mean, but Empire isn't aesthetically similar to New Hope either.
Yes, but at the same time, I had the idea of rose-colored glasses for those ones.
That's the thing that a lot of people have trouble separating.
Yes. At the same time, I also know that this is now Disney and this is now a higher budget. It's no longer George Lucas sometimes lucking his way into things and things like that. So I left not feeling the way I've ever felt in a and again, this was well better than films that I felt disappointed in or upset at. Hulk movie.
Just you didn't have the same euphoric rush at the end.
Didn't feel like I had the same Star Wars
I
experience.
I will disagree, but fair.
Here's the other thing I will say.
Risks not many agreed with, including Mark Hamill. But that's I felt that the thing is that in The Force Awakens we're introduced to the idea of moving on, of leaving the old behind.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, Kylo Ren.
Excited for that.
Sorry, spoilers. Stabs Han and leaves him behind, and The Last Jedi took that and ran with it, of leaving behind that which came before.
Yes.
Thematically. And I don't think that that's the problem you have with it, but a lot of people did have that problem.
Oh, yes, my God.
And that's what bothers me.
I do want to... Oh, shit. Watching all these movies, I love watching... My mother gets very involved with the films. Anytime they would do force powers in the previous films, she would go, ha! And she would, like, hide her face from the screen from seeing the force powers activated. She didn't do it during that movie. And I think that's partially also something for me that she also, as someone that's not as critical of what she's seeing and things like that, wasn't getting into it.
The Force was a lot more psychological than flashy in Last Jedi.
It was, which
Like,
is also partially why.
yeah.
But I missed that moment of, and Claire, I looked, because in Force Awakens, my mother's like hiding behind the popcorn bucket when he's like when he's like telling her to do things. My mother's like, huh, and like Claire's like, what is she doing? I was like, she's into it. She's so into this movie. So thank you for humoring my questions and things.
Yeah,
like that.
no, this is
being
great.
That
this
Star Wars is your thing, and it was your road to ask questions of, because you have more content knowledge.
It was my first road to nerddom.
Than many other people I know, and especially myself.
I will be seeing Rise of Skywalker Thursday night. You will not. You don't know exactly when you're going to be seeing it.
It'll probably be it'll definitely be in the next 2 weeks.
So we will not be talking Rise of Skywalker next week. What we might do is, once you've seen it, we may pre-record something to go up on my YouTube channel so that you can tune in even if you haven't seen it, and don't worry about spoilers or anything like that. We might just give we liked it kind of, really quick thing.
And we so much fun!
We'll probably do like an in-depth thing, I think offline, and just have that upload as something pre-recorded.
Hell yeah.
I think that'll be fun. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the movie in a couple days, and once you've seen it, look forward to talking about it with you.
Don't spoil the movie for people who work in retail. We can't go see it. Don't tell us the plot.
Oh god, someone nearly did that with Avengers Endgame over the summer, and we had to like literally kick him out of the store. Oh, I was just gonna get out. Like, me and someone else shouted him out of the store.
Dan had The Force Awakens big plot point spoiled for him, and I am shocked that we still went to go see it as a group because of that.
Okay, so we're basically at the end of our runtime. We got like 10 minutes left, but we got a couple things to follow up on. We talked about the Sonic the Hedgehog studio last week, and how they did the redesign, and how it was kind of like the original design after all, before executives got in there. Well, executives can't stop meddling. The Vancouver branch of Moving Picture Company, which was responsible for Sonic the Hedgehog as well as The Lion King, many other high-grossing movies, was shut down. And that is unfortunately the nature of VFX filmmaking right now. We're not going to go super in-depth in it, but this has been a problem for a long time. And more than just getting shut down, there was I think an anonymous source, to be fair, but saying that 17-hour days were a thing. Working through the weekends was a thing, and it's exactly these conditions that everyone was so happy that they pushed back the release a couple months when they ordered the redesign, and yet that crap still happens and they still get shut down. The other arms are still open and people have the opportunity to move elsewhere, but that's all tax incentive reasons. Oh cool, we have this thing here, and then realize that we've been letting it go way too much in taxes, and you're not actually giving anything back to our community aside from 30 jobs and the economy velocity whatever theory stuff that you want to say from those 30 jobs. But we can get those 30 jobs with someone that actually pays taxes, so bye. And unfortunately that's what happens. So rest in peace, Vancouver branch of the of MPC. They still have Montreal. There's still like an Austin, Texas one. They're still there, but unfortunately, that's kind of how things go. And this came to light back with Life of Pi, where Rhythm and Hughes was going bankrupt, and Ang Lee thanked everyone under the sun except the people doing the VFX. And someone tried to thank the VFX artists and acknowledge the protests going on outside, and was played off by the Jaws theme after like 20 seconds. Yeah, it's a travesty that like the people that I know that work in VFX, hats off to you. I don't know how you do it, but like it's a crazy industry. There's another follow-up. Last week, you said that you really, really liked the Call of Duty 2v2 game mode, and you said there was some sort of caveat that you ran into that you didn't give me too many details on. So, Dave, deets, please.
Boner, a big part of the Call of Duty franchise is checking your KD, kill to death.
Yep.
In the game, presently, there is no way during a match to see how many deaths you have. You can see how many kills you have and how many points you've accrued.
Okay.
Until the other day, when they released a microtransaction, a DLC. Now, in its defense,
it's a dirty word.
It is called the Mother Russia Bundle. It is 10 pieces of cosmetic items for about $20. It does not change how the game is played, but included in those items is a watch called Time to Die, that then, while you are playing, allows you to see your KD. So they made a part of a game. They made it a something.
That's something that should have been released as a free update, as a teaser for more things that you could pay for.
Fie on you once again, corporations that make these things and do these things. I will say, however, it once again then brought up another compliment that I have for Call of Duty, which is that even if you purchase the watch, you can't see your teammates' KD.
Oh, so it's just your own?
Yep.
Okay.
So, in that regard, to those people who play the game just to troll all the other people on your team, suck it, dong bags. You still won't know if I got 10 kills and 14 deaths. You'll just have to figure it out with some arithmetic about our team score.
You'll just be able to tell me after doing a quick 2v2 before the podcast started that in all 6 rounds, my teammate only got 1 kill. And that's what's important.
In 2v2s, they tell you your KD.
Okay, so you're talking to some
team deathmatch, and the other ones where people get really toxic about it.
Right.
2v2s, to be honest, it's open and shut so quickly that the maximum amount of times you can die is 6.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Like,
yeah.
So, once again, fie on you, Call of Duty. Fie on you.
And also fie on another corporation that saw us enjoying ourselves here on the Nerd Glasses podcast. I said 2 weeks ago that Microsoft is awful at numbers, and so, with it not being announced yet, we would refer to the next Xbox console as the Xbox 17. Microsoft heard us and said, "Joke's on you, there is no number at all in the name of the next Xbox." Folks, I want to introduce you to something that is roughly this size, maybe a little wider, maybe a little deeper, called the Xbox Series X. The Xbox Series X is the name of Microsoft's new Xbox console coming out next holiday season. I have some things to say, but you look like you're physically injured keeping it in, so by all means, get it out.
Because this means that people are going to come into retail businesses and ask for an Xbox, the new one. It's an Xbox X, but it's not an Xbox X, and it's not an Xbox. It's the Xbox Series X. And you know what? Your consumers are not smart enough to differentiate the stupid numbers you assign to these products.
And if you think
simplify it down.
If you think they are, I simply direct you back to when the Wii U came out and people thought it was
a peripheral!
A peripheral for the Wii.
And we had to release an entire new advertising campaign showing the system in the foreground because they literally, those executives crapped their pants because I was like, oh, why would I want a tablet for my Wii? And they're like, no! Like, it's not...
The Xbox Series X sounds very close to the Xbox One X. That is the current generation of Xbox over here. And so, like, it's one thing when there was the Xbox and it didn't have another form factor at all. Then the Xbox 360, which I pulled out my original one here, and Dan had this look on his face of, like, ancient archaeology. And then they came out with the Xbox 360S. Okay, S for slim. Great, cool. Then Xbox One. Why are you going back in numbers? Fine. Xbox One X. Okay, fine. X for expansion. I don't know, maybe.
And don't forget the Xbox One S that they came out between
God,
those two.
there wasn't there?
There is an S. Exactly. See what I mean?
God, and now the Xbox Series X.
CJ, yeah, that's dumb and confusing. Give me a PS5.
So dumb, and because, like, they shoot themselves in the foot. This is the 4th Xbox console. Just call it an Xbox 4.
Or, if you decide to call it the Xbox 17?
17.
If you decide to call it the Xbox 17, you can write a check for a boater, care of David Mann, Mann. You can send that check straight to me at Insane Games in the Wilton Mall. I'll make sure Boater gets 100% of what's left over.
I know where you live, Dave.
I know, and you can come over with me.
Demon Dragon simply points out that the Xbox Series X might actually be the Xbox Series 10. That could be a Roman numeral.
I'd be okay with that. I really would.
No, the
I would
thing
be
is, if they
entirely
called
okay
it a
if
Series 10 and actually did like the 1-0 thing, fine. Stupid because numbers.
Should they not call it the XX and
No,
have
you
it
know
the
what?
Xbox
Xbox
20?
Series 4. It's the 4th console. Get your thing in there. I would be 100% fine calling it the Xbox Series 4. Because then you can do your 4S, 4X, whatever. Xbox 30.
I would say just because it's coming out in a new, for 2020, call it the Xbox XX, so that you're also avoiding the XXX label, because we are a mature people that we really do appreciate a XXX joke, though.
My Knights of the Old Republic playthrough I labeled with Roman numerals because that's how the episodes are all numbered. So episode 30 got flagged.
Yes.
Boater,
as we wrap up, I'm going to say it, and I'm a little bit surprised that no one in chat picked up on this. Behind me this entire episode, a very alarming set of news has been playing.
Yeah.
About Kim Jong-il dying, America getting invaded in 2012, announcing a lot of other very, very disturbing things happening. Why is this here today?
After the Nerd Glasses podcast tonight will be the premiere of The Citadel, which will be my streaming show here on Insane Games TV. On The Citadel, we're going to take a look at games from the past that maybe didn't get a lot of love, or games that were fine, not great, not awful, and kind of look at them from a critic's point of view. What is working about this game in this moment? What is not working about this game? What can I be unjustifiably mad at this game for? Kind of taking a cue from how we played Recore, saying this is what's working and this is what's not working. And so tonight, on the premiere episode of The Citadel, we are going to be playing Homefront on the Xbox 360, a game that came out in 2011. Right after, in this opening cinematic here, it mentions a nuclear submarine thing that was actual news with North Korea, and like kind of this thing that was, kind of had people on a little bit of a wire about it. And then from there goes the actual like science fiction, speculative fiction, goes into the future with escalating tensions, until North Korea expands, gets super militaristic and super expansionist, and invades the United States.
Successfully.
And so you are playing as someone in the occupied West Coast to, try to take back your hometown, at least. There's a sequel to it that I haven't played, but I might do that on my own at some point. But yes, we're going to be playing Homefront tonight on the Citadel at 9 o'clock, or basically as soon as we finish here. And it's soon. I'll let you get away from the mic. As soon as we finish here and we switch it to a starting soon screen and we swap out all the decor pieces for the Citadels and get everything started up again. It was just kind of easier to get this plugged in ahead of time. But yes, Homefront on the Xbox 360 will be the premiere game for the Citadel, and I'm really looking forward to it. And that was about all the words that I had to say there. That phone call came at a weird time. How mad would he be if I just ended the stream right now? No. So yeah, thank you everybody for tuning into the Nerd Glasses podcast. We are going to be saying our final words on the matter when Dave comes back. As the Christmas music comes in from the other room. But yeah, this was a really fun episode where we did a lot of talking about Star Wars and then just kind of following through on a couple stories that we covered in the past. I had a lot of fun talking Star Wars with you.
And I thank you for allowing me to grab onto that moment
and Star Wars
and ask you those things, because I knew that there was a lot of information that you could give and a lot of questions that I had about these things, knowing that you are more, especially accurately, able to answer, especially like that. The thing that spoke was the legends. When you said it, I was like, oh my god, because I remember reading all the books and things. So thank you for allowing this tangent to roll into an episode.
Absolutely, be like 45 minutes of the episode. It was good to catch up on a couple of the things, and then to make fun of Microsoft with what I will call going forward the Xbox Series X. I hope to milk Xbox 17 for a few more episodes, but it has an official name now. I hope it changes. Microsoft #Xbox Series 4. But that's what they got, and we'll see how it goes. So thank you all for joining us tonight on the Nerd Glasses podcast.
Have a good one, and we will see you next Tuesday right here.
We will be here Christmas Eve. I don't know exactly what we're going to talk about, but we'll figure something out that's nice and festive. Maybe my song will be holiday related.
What we hope will be under the tree.
Yeah, right? So by all means, and message us on Twitter, on Instagram. Tell us what you want to hear us talk about on a Christmas Eve episode for you. Because it's going to be for you guys that we're going to be here. We're going to do that. But stay tuned. Stay tuned right here for the premiere stream of the Citadel, featuring Boater playing Homefront. Thank you guys. For those of you that are not going to stick around, have a good night. For those of you that are, I will see you in just a few minutes. Have a good night. Should I mute?
That one.
I should have muted, shouldn't I?
Oh, that's okay. Go to this.
So look here, I put on the back of my bike and we went riding down by old man Johnson's farm. I said, now overcast days never turn me on. Something about the clouds and her mixed. She wasn't too bright, but I could tell when she kissed me, she knew how to get a kick.